Hey guys, how's it going? We're back for another round of 9.5 patch overview. If I can get the right thing going. There we go. Alright, so I just got done with an hour video talking about the individual missions. And since I've got the common test open, I'm going to jump right in a separate video to talk about the new British tank destroyer line and associated tanks. Alright, sounds good? Let's get it going. I don't want to spend a lot of time. I'm actually a little crunched for time because I have to be somewhere at noon, and that's in like 40 minutes. So I'm going to try and get this done real quick, and then we can go. All right, so back to the video. So the first tank in the tree. Let's open up the tech tree so we can look. So British tech tree. Here we go. So the new tanks are the M2, the Stuart 1-4, the Grant, the Sherman 3, the Firefly, the Archer, the Achilles, the Challenger, the Charioteer, the Conway, and the FV4005. Alright, so we can skip through these first. This is the M2 light tank. It is, for all intents and purposes, the M2 light tank from the American tree with only minor changes. As a matter of fact, if you look at the vehicle details, it very specifically says American light tank in the British line. So this was supplied to the UK under Lend-Lease. Really basic. It's just a slight modification off of the M2 Light. It's tier 2, whatever. Alright, the Stuart 1-4. This is effectively an M3 Stuart. Again, really basic. See, it says, well, the M3A1 version was designed Stuart 3. This is just a combination of the tanks. So, the tier 3 new tank is, for all intents and purposes, the M3 light tank, or the M3 Stuart from the American branch. Moving on. The Grant. Does this look familiar? It should. Why does it look familiar? Because it's an M3 Lee with a different turret. Same problems. It's a medium tank that's got a fixed forward gun. Kind of a big bummer. There is, I think, no, there's no difference actually. I think the guns are the same. The hit points are, I mean, there's slight differences between the two tanks, but again, we can go into vehicle details and it says a variant of the M3 Lee. It's an M3 Lee. Have fun. Not the Matilda. Sherman 3. Does the tank look familiar to you? It should. It's because it's an M4. It's not any old M4 though. It's the M4A2. Now what does this mean for you? Well, it means, frankly, almost nothing. Because you're still going to pick between two guns. You're going to pick the 76mm M1A1 that the M4 gets, or you're going to pick up the 105mm, or the 105 howitzer. That's it. So congratulations. It's your standard tank. Alright. Not the Cromwell. The last tank on this very particular line, and the one that everyone has been waiting for. The Sherman Firefly. Now the closest tank I could find to compare this to is the E8. The EZ8. So, let me pull up the EZ8 and we will compare. And I keep going to tech tree and I don't want to. EZ8 vehicle details. Alright, let's do a comparison here. Let's see. Hit points, the same. Slightly heavier on the Firefly with less engine power, so it's slower. Hull armor is slightly better. Turret is the same. Shell damage is higher. Penetration is higher. Rate of fire is lower. Turret traverse speed is higher. Alright, and signal range is lower, but I don't know about that. Okay, so basically, the thing that makes this tank special is you get a reasonably rapid firing gun that is this 17-pounder gun Mark 7, which is this 171-150. Now if we compare this to some of the medium tanks in line, let's say the Cromwell gets not as good a gun. The Comet gets not as good a gun. This is, as a matter of fact, the same gun that the Black Prince gets. 171, 150. The Firefly gets 171, 150. It's the same gun. Matter of fact, I think it's actually exactly the same gun. Yep, Black Prince, Sherman Firefly, Caravan Centurion Mark 1. So what this means is, if you have the Black Prince or the Centurion Mark 1, you can unlock this gun before you get to the Firefly. Which means you could save yourself 15,000 research points. Now you still got to do the turret. You still got to do this gun, which I think is unique to the Firefly. Yep. But save yourself that. This is the whole reason you take the Firefly, because it's a tier 6 with a tier 7 gun. That's it. And 12 rounds a minute is pretty good. 12.77 to be specific. Accuracy is D's and aim time is good. Excuse me. All in all, I think this will be a fun tank. Now it is sluggish, so you're not going to be bombing around like you do in an Easy 8 or even in a Fury. But you get good penetration and good dispersion. So this is more of a second line tank, not really a medium brawler, which is good because that's really what the Firefly should be as a tank destroyer. Even though it says medium tank, it's tank destroyer. All right, I think that's pretty good. I think this will be a fun tank. There's a possibility this may supplant the Easy 8 as my other favorite tier 6. I don't know. We'll see. It definitely has a better gun. That's for sure. Having a 171, 150 versus the 128, 115, and even though the rate of fire is 4 rounds a minute less, I think I might like this gun more. We'll see. It'll take 30 to 50 battles with it, I think, before I'm certain whether I want it or not. Grunt shouldn't be too bad, though. So, nice and easy. All right, that is the Firefly line. Now, the Firefly line technically leads down into the Challenger, but you can also get to the Challenger through the Valentine. So we're going to start down that line first. Now, notice, 7 minutes in, we've already covered a line. That's because almost all the tanks in that line are carbon copies. Now we get into some unique British vehicles. The first, the Archer. Now let's take a good long look at this tank for a second. Do you notice anything interesting about it? Do you? Well, if you don't, I'll tell you. This tank is backwards. As a matter of fact, it's extremely backwards. And here's why. Apparently I don't have my Valentine on this one. That's okay. Sure, it doesn't really matter right now. Okay. So, this is the Archer. And this is the Valentine. It's a Valentine that drove backwards. And a matter of fact, it did, actually. The Archer, and I don't know if it says this, no, a successful reuse of the outdated Valentine chassis. Yeah, so this is essentially a Valentine where, due to weight balance, the engineers discovered that they couldn't actually put, due to engine placement and weight balance, they couldn't actually put the gun housing over the rear of the vehicle to make it drive forward. So instead, they stuck it on the front of the vehicle and had it drive backwards. So even though so it's right now forwards is to the left. So if you press W on your key, you'll drive forwards. Well, forward top speed is only 12. It's really slow. But that's because you're technically driving backwards. If you drive backwards in this thing, top speed goes up to whatever the Valentine's is plus a little bit more. So the Valentine's is 24. So I think it's like 30 or 35 backwards. So if you're driving the Archer and you want to get to position quickly, don't drive forwards, drive backwards. I know it sounds weird, and I know that there have been jokes for a really long time about how the French tanks actually drive faster backwards than forwards, drive faster backwards than they do forwards. But in this case, this is actually true. This tank drives faster backwards than it does forwards. So, you're going to spend the first 5 seconds of the game turning around, And then you're going to drive backwards to your destination, but you're then going to face forwards and go about your game normally. What makes this tank so dangerous? I'll tell you. Look, it's that 17-pounder we saw on the Firefly. This tank, this gun, it's almost the exact same stats as the Firefly at tier 5. This tank is going to be amazing at tier 5. Now, it's always hard to gauge a tank like this on the common test because everybody plays it. But I think in normal course of play, this tank is going to be really, really strong because that gun is awesome at this tier. You got more than enough penetration to punch through anything you want, and you have plenty of damage to do whatever you want. All right, moving on next to the Achilles. And we'll just look at it here. The Achilles. Does this tank look familiar to you? It should. Why should it? Because it's an M10. I'm not even joking. British variant of the American M10 tank destroyer. Okay. What's important about this? Well, other than the fact that it's basically an M10, it gets the same 17-pounder gun. Which is good. Because although the Wolverine is a decent tank, depending on whether you use the M1A2, which is the rapid fire gun that the Easy 8 gets, or you use the 105 howitzer, the same gun that most people run in the M4. Both of those are pretty on par. I prefer the M1A2 simply because I tend to engage at range and I want accuracy. I would much rather have this gun. Hands down, I would rather have this gun. Better, much better penetration. Accuracy, I think, is about the same. Better damage. Just a great gun. Same gun as the Archer, too, which means that you basically do... you have to grind through this gun. Unfortunate, 5,000. So you get this one stock, whatever. So you get 5,000 here. You get 4,000 here, so you're at about 10,000, and then you've already got this unlocked through the Archer, which is fine. Once you've got this gun, should be a fairly simple grind to the Challenger, the tier 7 tank destroyer. Let's take a look at that one. Alright, the Challenger. Now this tank kind of looked funny to me for a little while, and I couldn't figure out why until I compared it to the Cromwell and realized that it's basically... I don't think the comment's right? See what we got. 5 road wheels. Challenger is 6 road wheels. Okay, so it's a little different, but not a ton. Top speed is good. You can think of it as a Cromwell or a Comet with a weird freaking turret on the top. It's a good way to think about it. Actually, we can mount the other gun on it to make it look even funnier. Now it looks really weird. There we go. Much better, right? Whatever. Here's the thing. We're at tier 7. We've got a tank destroyer. You know what I really want? A better gun. You know what you're not going to get? A better gun. Look, it's the same gun again, just a higher rate of fire, same accuracy, better aim time. I think the Challenger is going to struggle. I think the reason it's going to struggle is because it just doesn't have a gun. It doesn't. Look, this 17-pounder might be good enough for the Black Prince. And it might be good enough for the grind if you choose to use it on the Centurion Mark I. I don't know if it's going to be good enough on this tank destroyer. I think the tank is going to suffer because of it. I really do. Regardless, that's what you're stuck with. So you've now got 4 tanks, 2 tier 6s, 1 tier 5, and now a tier 7 that all use the exact same gun. Now that saves on experience quite a bit, but it means that you end up making up the cost in the end, right? 106,000 for a tier 8. Jeez, that's quite a bit. Alright. So, that's basically the Challenger. There's nothing too exciting about it otherwise. You've got a giant turret. I don't think it has soft stats like gun depression, so I'm not entirely certain on those, but I'd hazard a guess that it's fairly decent. So you can play peekaboo some, But the problem is the turret armor is garbage. Except for the rear. That's right. The rear of this turret has 200 turret armor. That's because this block right here is actually just a giant metal block that the British put on in order to counterbalance the turret. That's right. Instead of making a longer turret like everyone else did, they just went, you know what? Nah, let's just put a big-ass chunk of metal in the rear. That's 200. Which means if you're worried about being shot, turn your turret around. I know it sounds weird, but you can totally do it. Turn your turret around so that it's facing the wrong way, and then poke. Especially if you don't have gun depression. They can shoot that turret all they want. You have 200 millimeters. Screw those guys. Alright, so let's move on. Yeah, I don't think the Achilles have that. Yeah, okay. So let's move on to the Charioteer. The Tier 8. Now this tank is starting to look interesting. Armor is garbage, and this is a theme that we will see continue through the line. However, we're not in it for the armor. We're in it for the gun, and the gun is nothing to sneeze at. Tier 8, we have a 268 penetration, 390 damage, giant cannon. You'll notice too, Hesh gets a 210, 480, which isn't bad. I think I'd still stick with the AP. Tier 10 gun and a Tier 8 tank. Pretty standard, actually. Even the mid-range gun isn't bad at 226, 230. But look at this. 6 rounds a minute. Gonna be fun. Accurate, too, at a .35. So, even though you've got paper armor, you got a good gun, a good rate of, decent rate of fire, you're going to do a lot of damage at that tier. A lot of tanks are going to be afraid of you. A lot of tanks. You are limited, however, on hit points. You've only got 1,000 at Tier 8, so you can only take a couple of hits. That's 3 hits from an IS-3. That's it. 3 hits from a lot of things, actually. So you're a very easy target to take down, so you're going to want to make sure that you camo up. Camo rating, I think, is decent, but you'll want to do camo crews, camo nets, probably binoculars. You're going to want to sit back and shoot away. But I think it'll be a fun tank to play. I like the fact that this particular line is going in an entirely different direction from the AT series. Right? If we go back to the tech tree, we've got this line here, which is, you know, awesome light tank, giant gun tank destroyers. And this one here is super heavy, really slow, rapid firing tank destroyers. I like the two different lines. It provides two very different playstyles, which I appreciate. Alright. The Tier 9, the FB 4004 Conway, who also has giant bulb turret syndrome. Now, he actually has almost decent armor. The problem? It's Tier 9, and 132 isn't really going to cut it. The benefit here is that you can't just shoot HE at the turret and get through, which is great, because that could be a problem for tanks like the Waffenträger Auf E100. And we'll see the 4005 Stage 2 has the same problem. But in this case, we've got 1,500 hit points, which is a little low, but that's okay. The gun, one turret. There's not a lot of options on this tank, so stock is stock is stock. 259, 400 at 7.69 rounds a minute with a .32 dispersion and 1.9 aim time. Honestly, that's a dangerous tank. It's a really dangerous tank. View range is pretty decent too, 380, which isn't bad. I think same with everything else. I think binoculars and camo netting is going to go a long way on this tank. Let's see, what other options does it get? Gun rammer potentially would be good. Yeah, I would do. So I would do camo net, I would do binocs, and I would do rammer. Or maybe vents. Rammer or vents, your call. Both of those I think would be very good on this tank. You could, if you wanted to, forego the binoculars or the camo netting for one of the other ones, but I wouldn't suggest it. Survivability is really important if you want to do enough damage, and because you don't have much armor to speak of and your hit points are low, you're going to want to make sure that you don't get spotted. Yeah, it should be good. You could also consider premium consumables if you're really feeling up to it. That's totally up to you. All in all, though, it should be a hard-hitting tank, not one that I'm going to want to face down. 400 damage at every 8 seconds. It's scary. Alright, that's the Tier 9. we're going to move right into the tier 10. Get this thing over and done with. It's going to be a shorter video, but that's all right. There's not much else to see. So let's move on. The tier 10, the FV4005, stage 2, the Death Star 2. This tank is a box. And the worst part about it is, look at that turret armor. 14, 14, 14. Now just to put that into perspective of how low that is, let's go over here into the tech tree. And let's go look at that much maligned Sherman 3 that we just saw. And we'll take a look at it. And we'll look at this 105 M4. And we'll look at the penetration. The average penetration is 53. 53. Which means you can penetrate for full damage with a tier 5 howitzer gun this turret. That's 450 damage plus or minus 25% to a tier 10 in the head. You have 1850 hit points. You know what else that means? This gun, if you fire Hesh out of it, on an average roll, let's just look at this for sure. Look at this. On an average roll, it does 1750. You have 1850 hit points, which means an average roll with Hesh or even HE, which is free, I might add. Seriously, this is one of the first things I've seen that actually running HE is worth it. Why is it worth it? Because if you see another one of these tanks, you kill it. You just shoot it in the head and it dies. It goes away. 92 damage is more than enough. So this is effectively the same exact gun. Actually, I think it is the same gun that the other 183 gets. I believe there is an exception to the rule, however, and that exception is nope, there isn't. It's the exact same gun. Okay, actually, I should have noticed right there. That was really stupid of me. So the gun everybody hates on the 183, the exact same gun is on the FV4005, which means it's the same rate of fire. It can't be the same rate of fire. Hold on. 2 rounds a minute. 2 rounds a minute. Okay, never mind. It is the same rate of fire. What is the difference? Well, let's look. The difference between the two, obviously other than armor, which is significant, is that the weight is less, so the engine power is higher, which means it will be more agile. Now, I believe, let's see, look at crew. Crew's the same. Okay. I believe that the turret suffers from the same downside as the 183 does, which is that it is basically a 45-degree arc. So you get there and there, and that's it. So you get it's a 45 either direction, brings it a total of a 90-degree arc. That's it. That's all you get. I don't know about this tank. I really don't. I don't know if it's worth it all the way up at tier 10. And the reason I don't know is because you're so squishy. Unless the camo rating on this tank is significant or it's significantly more mobile, which it doesn't appear to be off the stats, I don't know if this tank is going to be any better than the 183. I will say this though, I think that the grind to this tank will be easier. And I think that's in part because you have tanks that are mobile, and right now mobility wins over armor every time. It's one of the reasons why the Bat Chat is so good, or the Leopard 1, or the STB 1. Those tanks are good because they are mobile, not necessarily armored. Now armor has its place, but you can't rely on it. Unless this thing isn't mobile though, it's going to have to rely on armor, which it doesn't have. I don't know. Either way, it's there. It's another Death Star. Have fun with it. You're going to be seeing them a lot, I'm sure. And then they're going to be loaded with Hesh, because Hesh is amazing. It really is. I know that they nerfed the penetration down to 200 and whatever. I don't even know what they nerfed it down to. 230, I think. Yeah, 230 down from like 275. It doesn't matter. It's not enough. It's still amazing. This tank is still going to punish people who get in its line, but it's going to get punished in return really, really hard. Way more scary to face the 183 than it is to face this thing right now. Because the 183 you can bounce off the turret, and as a matter of fact, the 183 got a buff, which we'll talk about in the patch notes. It got a buff to the turret armor, so the turret armor is more and it is a little bit slower, I think. Yeah. I don't know if this tier 10 is worth it. I think the tier 9 is worth it. I think the tier 8 is worth it. I don't know if the tier 10 is worth it. But that's up to you guys. That's not my decision to make. Alright. Well, that is the new line. The new British tanks that are coming out. Which I'm very excited about, actually. I'm going to go get the Sherman Firefly, see how I like it. I'm going to grind up that tree because I'll probably like it more than the AT series. Should be good. Alright, guys. That's another video in the pipe. To be honest, I'll probably do a patch note video later, and it will kind of preface everything, which is going to make the first video a little weird. And that's okay, because I do things weird, and I like it that way, and no one can tell me different, so there. Seriously, though, I'm going to do a patch notes overview. I've got it all set up, and that'll be out later today, too. They'll probably all go up roughly the same time, and I'll throw them on a 9.5 overview playlist, so if you need to find them, that's where they are. Alright guys, cool. I'm out. So you guys have fun. Enjoy. Watch videos. Don't forget to like. Do whatever you want. I'm always down for new feedback, new viewers. Always into that kind of stuff. So, until next time guys, happy tanking. Bye.